This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, Marva Rabbi Sai, Bruchim Haba, and welcome everyone to today's shir. We're going to have two parts to today's shir. First, we're going to have a few words about Lag BaOmer, and I want to share with you some thoughts of a famous Gemara in Masechta Ksubos, at the end of Masechta Ksubos, and today's Divrei Torah on Lag BaOmer have a number of sponsors. We want to thank Reb Jonathan Rogoff, who's sponsoring the shir Leiloi Nishmas from Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. I thank Reb Ephraim Bernstein as a Refuah Shlema for Rechel Bas Miriam Mindel, by Reb Yoni Klein and family, Leiloi Nishmas, his father Mendy Klein, Menachem Moshe ben Naftali Herzka, whose yahrzeit is today, and by Michal Shugel from Vienna, who covered the birth of a baby girl this past Sunday. So the first shir, I want to share with you some interesting thoughts about Lag BaOmer in general, and I want to share with you an amazing chiddush of none other than the Rama himself, whose yahrzeit is on Lag BaOmer. We know that one of the distinguishing features of Reb Shimon Bar Yochai is that in his generation, the rainbow never appeared. There was never a rainbow in the time of the Rashbi, because through his protection and through his merit, Hashem did not have to restrain himself and not destroy the world. In the merit of the Rashbi, it sort of went without saying that HaKadosh Baruch Hu would not even consider destroying the world. And that means that the rainbow is a sign that Hashem is angry with the world, and when a rainbow does not appear, that indicates Hashem's pleasure with the world. But you could ask a question, and many Mefarshim do, is that a rainbow is a natural phenomenon. When the rain shines on water after the rain, then the rain the light is refracted by the water, and the water breaks up the light into various colors. And why would it matter what generation it was or what time it was? The gravity doesn't change and the physical phenomenon don't change. So what does it mean? There were rainbows in other generations. There weren't rainbows in the time of the Rashbi. So the Gemara in Masechta Ksubos on Daf Ayin Zayin Amud Beis tells us an amazing story that there was a certain disease called Baalei Ra'asan, a very contagious disease. Reb Zera did not even stay in the wind space of the Baalei Ra'asan. Rabbi Lezer did not go into the tent of the Baalei Ra'asan. Rabbi Ami and Rabbi Asi did not eat from the eggs of that alleyway. But Rabbi Shua ben Levi would hang around the Baalei Ra'asan. He wasn't afraid of contagion. He said he would learn Torah. He says the Torah is ayelas ahavim v'yalas chen. If the Torah grants chen to those who learn it, certainly it protects those who learn it. Now when Rabbi Shua ben Levi was passing away, so Amru lei l'malach hamav zil avid lei riyusa. They told the Malach HaMavis, do him a favor. So, Azal is Chazile. The Malach HaMavis appeared to Rabbi Shimon Levi, Amar le achvi le duchtoi. Rabbi Shimon Levi says, I want to see my place in the next world. Amru le l'chai. He said, okay, no problem, I'll show it to you. Amar le havli sakinach, dilma mavasli ba'orcha. So Rabbi Shimon Levi was a smart man. He said, I'm scared of you, Malach HaMavis. Give me your knife, because I might get scared of you on the road. Yavu Nehales. The Malach HaMavis gave him the sword. Kimato lahasam. When Rabbi Shua ben Levi got there, Dalye, he lifted him up. Kamachvele shuvar nafal hu gisa. Okay, basically, Rabbi Shua ben Levi jumped the fence. Rabbi Shua ben Levi jumped into Olam Haba alive. He's one of the few people who made it into the next world alive. He basically pulled a fast one on the Malach HaMavis. So the Gemara tells us he's walking in Gan Eden, and Eliyahu Hanavi is announcing Pinu Makam Lebar Levi, Pinu Makam Lebar Levi. Clear out spot for Bar Levi, Ben Levi. So he found Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. Reb Shimon Bar Yochai was enjoying in Gan Eden. He said, "Are you Bar Levi?" He said, "Yeah." So Reb Shimon Bar Yochai said, "Were there rainbows in your time?" He said, "Yeah, there were." He said, "Okay, then you're not Bar Levi." And the Gemara says it wasn't true. There were not rainbows in the times of Yeshua ben Levi. But he lied, and he says there were, because he didn't want to take credit for himself that he's such a big tzaddik. Okay, so one interesting thing that we said over last night, and is also evident in this Gemara, is the idea that the Rama's yahrzeit is on Lag BaOmer. What is the connection between the Rama and the Rashbi? So last night's shir got a little cut short because of the rain. In the middle of the shir, it started pouring. And but we brought from Reb Shimon Sofer in one of his drashas that he gave in Krakow on Lag BaOmer that the godless of the Rama, even though he was a great philosopher and a great makubal, was that he did not invent or innovate any new ideas. He just continued to pave the path of the Messiah based on the traditions of his father. Likewise, the Rashbi did not invent or innovate the Kabbalah. He was merely handing down the traditions of the generations. And what these two great tzaddikim have in common is they were so connected to the Messiah that the names of their father were seared into their names. So we don't call him Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. His father's name was, so to speak, part of his name. The same thing with the Rama. The Rama's father was Isserlin. So he became known as Rav Moshe Isserlis. Nobody calls the Rama Rav Moshe. Nobody knows the Rama as Rav Moshe. It's Rav Moshe Isserlis. So that was the godless of these two Gedolim. The same thing could be said of Rabbi Shua ben Levi. You see, when he gets to Olam Haba, they're calling Penu Makam Lebar Levi. Penu Makam Lebar Levi. He too merited that Madrega to connect to the Messiah's Avoisav to be called Bar Levi. Now, I want to tell you an amazing chiddush of the Rama, because this is definitely Ru'uy and Lamisha Amroi. This is taking a very logical and rationalistic approach. At the same time, it's a lamda shetaretz. The Rama says, granted, a rainbow is not a supernatural miracle. A rainbow is a natural phenomenon that when it rains and the sun shines on the rain, it produces a rainbow. So then, why would a rainbow mean anything? Why would the existence of a rainbow mean that God is angry in the absence of a rainbow? What do you mean the absence of a rainbow? There's no such thing as the absence of a rainbow. When it rains, there's a rainbow. Says Rama, that's true. When it rains, there's a rainbow. But it doesn't have to rain during the day. If it rains at night, there won't be a rainbow. The reason why there were no rainbows in the time of the Rashbi is not because God made a new phenomenon that light did not refract the spectrums of light. In the water did not refract the spectrums of light. It's because in times of the Rashbi it only rained in the nighttime. That's why there are no rainbows. And if it rains at night, so you won't see a rainbow. This was the chiddush of the Rama. By the way, where does the Rama say this chiddush? In the Sefer Toiras Ha'ila. Who quotes it? The Shla HaKadosh in Parshas Nayach. Says the Shla, Uveshem Rabbeinu Moshe Israel, Shamati Sha'amar. Even though a keshes is natural, nevertheless a rainbow would not be seen if they would be meritorious, because it is impossible by nature further to be a rainbow only if the rain falls during the day and the sun shines. And if they would have been Zoicha, the rain would fall at nighttime. Like Rashi says, next week's parsha, V'nosati gishmeichem be'itam, Leil Shabbos, Friday night is the best time for it to rain. Why? Because everyone's home. Nobody's going to get caught in the rain. On a Thursday night, you might be outside, but in Lag BaOmer, a bonfire. But Friday night is the best time. So they said to Rabbi Shua ben Levi, listen to how this is meduyik in the Gemara. Nirasa keshes biyamecha, was a rainbow seen during the day? Meaning that's the indication. Did it rain during the day in your lifetime? If it rained during the day, that means that there's a degree of displeasure that the Rebbeinu Shalom is showing. Now, another great Rav who would give a drush on Lag BaOmer in Krakow was another great Rav of Krakow, Rabbi Yosef Nechemia Kornitzer. And he says that the word keshes has a Kabbalistic meaning, and there is a bow of Tumah and a bow of Kedusha. The bow of Tumah is keshes, kina, sina, taiva, jealousy, hatred, desire. There's also a bow of Kedusha. What is the bow of Kedusha? The Chassam Sofer says, Aseh laman shemecha, Aseh laman Kedusha secha, Aseh laman Torah secha. Kedusha, shame, Torah. Corresponding to Taiva, we have Kedusha. As Rashi says, what is Kedusha? To separate from Taiva. Corresponding to Sina, hatred, we have shame, God's name. What is God's name? Shalom, peace. God says, erase my name in order to produce Shalom. And then, corresponding to jealousy, we have Torah, because jealousy is bad, but in the realm of learning Torah, jealousy is a positive attribute. So that is some of the symbolism of the word of keshes, that in times of the Rashbi, perhaps there was no keshes, there was no kina, sina, taiva, because he overcame it with kedusha, with the shame, and with his Torah. So we hope that his Torah should be magen lanu, his Torah should be megan for all of Klal Yisrael, and on a day of Lag BaOmer, where we know Lag BaOmer is a day of intense rachamim, and it's the day that represents Midas Habitachon. As we know, so many times we've said this, that if you take the name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Elokim, Aleph Lamed Hey, followed by Yud and Mem, and you take the letters before, so the Aleph becomes an Aleph, doesn't change. The Lamed becomes a Chaf. The Hey becomes a Daled. The Yud becomes a Tes. The final Mem becomes a regular Mem. Aleph, Chaf, Daled, Tes, regular Mem is Gematria 74, the name of Bitachon. Bitchu B'Hashem Adei Ad. However, because the Aleph doesn't really change and the Mem doesn't really change, only the three middle letters change. Chaf, Daled, Tes. Chaf, Daled, Tes, which originated as Lamed, Hey, Yud. Lamed, Hey, Yud. Lamed, Hey, Yud is 45. And the 45 on Lag BaOmer becomes 33. The Midas Hadin, by the way, the intense Midas Hadin is 45. Lamed Hey Yud. That is transformed to tremendous Rachamim on Lag BaOmer, because the 45 turns into 33. But unfortunately, this year, the 33, which is the Midas HaRachamim, was not transformed into 33. And unfortunately, we lost 45 nefashos. So we could imagine that on this day that's supposed to be tremendous Rachamim, unfortunately, we had to face very intense din. We hope HaKadosh Baruch Hu will be Merachim Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael. Amen.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.